drywall had sunken in a little bit when I mounted it, because when I put that piece of wood in there, it was held up by the metal stud that was already in place, and so it kind of sunk it back. And so the reason I'm pinpointing this one spot is because what I did on here is called a skim coat. And so if you look at it, the whole thing's puttied. And so yeah, there's some divots in it and stuff like that. I still have to tape it and putty again right after I tape. But I wanted to show you that right here is where it was sunken into the wall, and if you look at it from the side, you could say it's even now. But I did a skim coat on this just to make sure that that was completely flush and all one solid surface. And once that dries up, it'll take a little bit longer to dry because it's a little bit thicker on the amount of putty that's in it. But once that dries up, it'll just be one solid surface. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw my tape on that, putty over the tape, just like normal, and then smooth all this out so that I don't have to do too much sanding. This next bit of work that I'm about to do is fast. It's very fast-paced work, so I'm not going to video it. So what's going to happen, I've sanded all the spots, or all the lower spots right now. The taller spots are still drying. So what I'm doing next is I have to mix up hot mud. Hot mud is fast-drying drywall putty. And so I have to mix up hot mud and come in and patch or skim coat all of these spots with the hot mud. I think the one I'm going to use is my 5-minute putty, which is why I said it's fast work. The 90-minute isn't quite as fast. It's not too bad to work with, but 5-minute is ridiculously fast. Basically, it's supposed to dry in 5 minutes. And that comes from, it basically starts when you start mixing it. So I'm going to mix up a small batch. I'm going to throw it on my Eagle and come in here and skim coat as quickly as I can. Come back out, clean it up, mix up another batch, just over and over and over. And so I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to film any of it because I just won't have time. After I get the hot mud on, I'll go ahead and start up the video again and let you guys see what it looks like. Looks like I have powder in my nose. Yeah, so you'll see. All right, I did my skim coat on my bottom patches, and I'll go ahead and show you guys what that looks like now. The skim coat, like I said before, is with hot mud. It's 5-minute putty, and I actually didn't run into any issues with it drying too fast on me, but I mixed it really watery. So I did a true skim coat on these. A true skim coat would be just the thinnest of coats, and it's basically to fill in any gaps, any low points, and just to put a constant surface over the entire thing. I'll still have to sand it, but nowhere near as much as I had to sand it the first time. And the first time, the sanding it wasn't anything like when I first started learning drywall. So, I mean, I'm still only puttying, pretty smooth, so there's not a whole lot of sanding to be done, but you always have to sand something. So I'll show you the skim coats that I have. This first one, I didn't do a full skim coat, I just hit the joints. And then I think the rest of them, I have one other one over here that I only did the joints. The rest of them I did a full skim coat. So this is in the dining area when you first walk into the house. So it's got a couple of spots that I don't like about it, but sanding it will fix that, so it's really not a big deal. The other one I did just the joints on. There's that one down there. You can see how it's still a little bit wet right now. I think a couple of things. One, it seems like the humidity is really high in this house. And the other part is my putty is really actually kind of old, and so it might be getting close to its expiration. So you can see this one, I did pretty much a full skim coat on that. There's a couple of really thinner spots in the middle, but I think those are high points on it. Because I went over both directions with my taping knife, and so it really, it definitely leveled it out. My taping knife covered the whole thing, so that made that easy. There was one discrepancy over there that the skim coat took care of, and then there was a small like opening right here where I'd originally had a bigger hole that took care of. So there's that. I still have to wait on the putty up top to dry. You can see with the difference in color, the gray is still wet, the white is dry. So you can still see that, it's still in the process of drying. But I'm really happy about how things have gone today. You see this right here. Obviously I missed a screw right there, but I'll get that. Yeah, so it looks pretty good. That's this one right here. So I might bring the heat gun out just to dry this stuff up. I'd love to get this sanded and get some texture on it today, which would be really cool. I don't have my compressor with me to spray texture out of the hopper. I have to match it. Matching texture and doing texture from scratch are two completely different things. And so the texture here, it's nice and close. That's orange peel. It's like medium grade. It's heavier than what I did out in the garage. I'll show you what I did out in the garage so you can see it after it's been primed. It's definitely heavier than what I did here. You can see that. But it's not as heavy as what they did in this addition room, which is this. You can see they really splattered that stuff. So I think when I go to texture that, I'm actually going to use a roller, mix my texture a little thin, and apply it with a roller. There's so many different ways to texture and to match texture. And mainly, I mean, when you're matching texture, you have to blend it so that it looks like the rest of the wall. It looks like you're basically copying what the original person did. And so it's not easy in any way. I've gotten really good at it. Knockdown, I'm almost perfect at matching texture. Orange peel, decent. And we'll see how it turns out. The good thing is I have a lot of time to work on this. I know the customer's in a hurry, but her hurry and my hurry are two completely different things. And so I have the rest of this week, and if I need it, I have next week. I can work on this too. I don't think I'll need it, but if I do, it's an option. But yeah, so I'm gonna see if I can get this sanded down a bit, and then maybe if I have time, get some texture on. Pretty tired. I only got 5 hours of sleep the past 2 nights, so I'm kind of worn out, but we'll see what I can do. So I guess keep watching. I'll see if I can record some of it at least, and we'll see how it goes. I just want to show you guys so you can see some of the issues that arise while doing this. And of course I'll have them fixed before I texture this thing. So I've got this spot right here, which was an entire open hole. Now it got mudded and taped, but it seems like it's not holding real well. You can see a little bit of movement there, but there's also an opening right there. So I've got to fix that up, and I'll get that fixed. The other issue is while I was standing right here, I noticed movement right here. And if you watch the crack right there, I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's that slight bit of movement. So I'm going to get that sealed up better because I just don't like how much flex is in that. And it's just right here, but still it needs to be fixed. So you can see the flex all the way. So I'll deal with that as well. It's nothing new, but for somebody that hasn't seen this before or may not have done this kind of work before, I wanted you all to see what I'm seeing while I'm sanding is, you know, little bits that aren't perfect, and this needs to be perfect. So I'm done sanding this one. I'm going to move on to sanding the others, but I now have it in my mind that this one definitely isn't ready for texture today because those two issues need to be dealt with. I don't know if you guys have been noticing the color changes, but apparently they liked some different colors before they painted it the color it is now. I'm using really light sandpaper, so I'm not just blasting through the old colors. So there's tan, or yeah, like a tan or orange. There's also blue in there, and it looks like there's a light purple. Pretty interesting. So you can see all the colors that have been through these walls. Obviously they've just painted over them, which is perfectly okay to do. I'm surprised they did such a good job with their painting to cover those colors up. They did a bad job right there, but that's okay. But yeah, so I just think it's interesting to see the different colors that have been painted on this in the previous times. This one's ready for texture. This one looks really good. So I'm gonna move on to the next ones for sanding. We'll keep it going. I'd say that's pretty beautiful. That one's definitely ready for texture as well. Don't see any issues here. This thing's gorgeous. Nice and smooth. Back to a wall again. I like it. Isn't that just the prettiest thing ever? Look at that. That is gorgeous. Super smooth. I love it. I love it. This is going to take texture great. Yeah, these are going to be completely hidden. I love it. This is turning out perfect. I'm excited. All right, one more to sand. That's this one right here. So obviously I didn't put a whole lot in. It didn't take much before it started spewing out. It usually doesn't. So this in here is going to, whatever's behind is fine, also what's in between, but it's going to expand at a pretty impressive rate. And when it expands, it's actually going to hold this piece in. So because I didn't put much in, obviously it's not too much behind here, so I didn't put an entire can, so it's not filling up the entire cavity. You definitely don't want to put too much because you don't want it to push the wall out. It will. And so it's going to expand a little bit, and it's going to harden, and it should hold this piece rigid. Once it does that, I can use a knife, cut off any excess, and then use my putty, come back, putty it again, tape it again, putty it again, and just make this piece solid. So that's how we're fixing this one situation. All right, I'm back. I know you guys don't know this, but I left you guys for about an hour and a half. I just sanded the top spots that I had puttied yesterday, and my shoulders are on fire. Power tools that you use, of course, save a lot of stress on the body, but holding a sander up against the ceiling for any length of time still burns the shoulders. So anyways, I came back and I looked at my expanding foam that I'd put in when I stopped the video the first time, and it has expanded, and for the most part it has hardened, and this wall doesn't have barely any movement anymore. I had mentioned that when I put the expanding foam in, it didn't fill in a ton behind it. I didn't really need it to. I mean, just needed it to hold the piece of drywall in place so it didn't have as much movement, so that when I putty this time it's not going to crack. I'm going to show you guys that, and you guys can watch how you get rid of the expanding foam so you can putty over top. So here's the bottom part. Obviously it expanded out and started to drip down the wall. There's the top part. Didn't come out much, but it did come out a little bit. So I'm going to take my knife and cut these off, scrape them down, get them into the wall so that I can putty them. And so it's real simple, just cutting into it. That piece popped off. And just ripping off those sections of it. And so of course you don't want to gouge into it and take out any of the stuff that's holding any of the support on the piece of drywall, but you kind of want to get the excess pieces off. One thing I do a lot when I use a utility knife is to take the blade out. Just be sure you don't cut yourself when you do that. But I just kind of shave the wall a little bit. So just get off those little spots. Now my sander is still going to take a good deal of this off when I do sand it, whatever is necessary to take off, but I still like to clean it up as much as possible, so when I putty, I don't have putty over top of what's going to be sanded, because then I'll sand through the putty and the expanding foam will be left, and the expanding foam is an adhesive, but it's got a really crappy texture to it. And so if that ends up still showing after the wall's done with sanding, and I go to paint it, and it shows through, it's not going to look good. at all. So I'm just getting it a little bit shaved down so that I can putty over top, and it's all gonna look as it should. So all the tall pieces of pipe are ready for it. So you can see there's a little bit of movement right there, a little bit, barely any right there. So this had a ton of movement up here earlier. There's still a little bit down here, and I got half of mine to stick a little bit more expanding foam in that, but I'm not sure how much. All right, so I'm gonna putty this one spot that I had put the expanding foam to shore up that wall. I'm gonna use 5-minute putty, and I have to putty and tape and putty again. You guys saw me do that with the pre-mix stuff that comes out of the bucket, but I didn't show it to you with the 5-minute because it's hard to do. So basically I'm just gonna set the camera down. You won't see it, but I'll set the camera down and have it pointed at this spot so that you can see how fast I actually have to work. And I'll show you the wall before I do it. So here's the wall. I have expanding foam in a couple of spots here. As far as movement goes, there's zero movement. So the idea that I had worked. Now, this isn't a new idea. It's not the first time I've done this. Certain damage that happens to walls, besides using one of the sticky pads or doing a California patch or something like that, that's about the best way you can do it. All right, I mixed the putty up a little bit thinner this time than what I usually do. That's to give me a little bit more workability, a little bit more working time. That's what I mean by that. And hopefully a little bit more time to putty before it dries up on me. And also because it's easier to work with when it's this watery. Now, if you're not used to doing putty work, or you're new to this, or even somewhat new to this, it's probably not easier to work with it when it's this viscous. But for me, well, I've done this once or twice, so it's a lot easier to work with. So I get these on there, and then quickly get the tape on, and then putty over it again. And I'm just working against the clock here, hoping that it doesn't decide to harden up while I'm working with it. Oops, not good when it comes off. Come on, wasting my time. That piece didn't want to stick. You see me pulling with my knife while I'm doing that. It's to get it to stick to the wall, at least for a minute, while I get the tape on there, and then come back over the top with more putty to create a solid structure. The tape that I use is called Fibafuse. It's actually fiberglass tape. It's kind of a newer product, although it's more widely used now than pretty much any other type, as far as I see. It's the only one I use these days, and because I have trouble paying attention to what's in my truck, I actually have, I think, 3 rolls of it in my truck now. I should be set for a while, as long as I remember that it's there. Be a little bit more gentle with it. And since I'm here, I'm gonna go ahead and do a skim coat now. I can come back and sand this, but I want as little amount of sanding as necessary. I'm gonna try to do it as smooth as I can right now. a little bit more working time on this. It's starting to harden up a little bit more, but not terribly. Showing you guys the pressure that I use is impossible to do on the camera. I'd have to show you in person. I'm willing to train people to do this kind of stuff. If you want to have some real fun, go to the training I went to, which is called Fix Holes at Your Own House. In the end, you'll end up with a whole lot of spots of drywall in your own house that you want to go back and rip out and redo, because the first ones look like crap. But eventually you get good at it. Practice makes perfect, especially for drywall. Yeah, that's pretty nice. That looks pretty good. Cool. Alright, I like that. That's how it's going to stay. All that I mixed up, which was a pile that was about this tall. I don't know if you can see that knife there, but the pile that I had on here was about that tall. This is all that's left. So it gives you an idea of how much I used just now. It looks decent. I'm going to let it dry up. I'm going to give it a light sand, then I'll texture this. I've got some other spots that I need to do a light sand. And by light sand, I'm going to use just sandpaper on my hand, just super light sand. And so I'm going to do light sands, get my texture on, and if I don't run out of time, I'm going to try to get primer on today so that tomorrow can be just painting and cleaning, of course, because I've just made a disaster of the floors in this house. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed, and there will be a lot more to show you. It'll just be, I showed you a little bit of texture a minute ago, and so all I'll really have to show you is the priming and painting, and I may cut that out. So if I cut that out, I'll say my goodbye for now. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And if you have anything to say, or if you have any comments or suggestions or advice or whatever, I'm always open to it. Feel free to message me, comment on my videos, whatever. Have a great day. Thanks.